So, I also want to address that root cause issue in a minute, because it's really at the crux of everything we're talking about here, because even people inclined to agree with a lot of what we're saying about the value of privacy ultimately run into that brick wall called terrorism, which is really just fear-mongering. You elevate people's fear enough, and they're eager to run into the arms of authority. This is human nature that has existed for as long as human beings have. But let me just quickly address a couple of specific points with relation to terrorism and surveillance. First of all, the key difference is between targeted surveillance and mass surveillance. Nobody disagrees that targeted surveillance is legitimate. The idea that you have reason to believe that certain individuals are plotting violent acts against civilians, and therefore you monitor their communications. If that's what the US government had been doing, you would never have known the name Edward Snowden. There would never have been a leak. That's exactly what they're not doing. What they're doing instead is mass surveillance. They've constructed the largest system of suspicionless surveillance ever created in human history, where they're targeting not specific individuals who are likely involved in terrorism, but hundreds of millions of people, entire populations, to very invasive scrutiny. One of the things that struck me when I read through the documents was how few of them have anything to do with terrorism. As Professor Chomsky was saying earlier, you read through documents and you're shocked by how little of it has to do with national security. There's tons of it that have to do with spying on economic targets, on oil companies, on economic conferences where countries negotiate trade agreements, spying for diplomatic advantage, spying on entire populations, including our own. Very little of this apparatus has been devoted to actual terrorism. And then the final specific point I want to make about that is that we always talk about, and your question suggested this, that there's a trade-off between security and privacy. So that if you want more security, you have to give up more privacy and let the government spy more, and vice versa. This is a really false dichotomy. And huge numbers of experts have said that when you allow the government to collect billions of telephone calls and emails every day, as the US government is doing, billions every day, that it is virtually impossible for them to find who's going to detonate a bomb at the Boston Marathon, or who is planning on blowing up a jetliner over Detroit, or detonating a bomb in the subway and airport of Brussels, or attacking a newspaper in Paris, because they're collecting so much information that they can't possibly find what they claim they're looking for. And if I know that, and if all these experts are saying that, they know that as well, which ought to really provoke the question, is it really the case that they're just so incompetent that they don't get this basic fact that if they collect everything, they won't know what they have? Or is there some other purpose to the spying system beyond the stated purpose of finding terror plots? And I think that ultimately is the key question.